Wonderful. So welcome to this quarter's entrepreneurial lunch. I'm Mary Roy. I'm a Greater Iowa City. And our entrepreneurial lunches are a collaboration between JPEC and Greater Iowa City. And they're always great. Great conversation, great learning, great networking. So today we're going to talk about, we have some experts about funding for your future, which throughout my career, I learned some lessons, business. The first is, it's never not about money. True. The second is, never run out of cash. So some good lessons coming today. Our MC today is Lexi Root, our specialist in events and operations, and she's going to introduce our experts today.
Thanks, Mary. Hello, everyone. Thank you all for coming to this quarter's lunch. With a raise of hands, can I see who's been to a lunch before? Okay, like half the group. Awesome. So for those of you who haven't been here, welcome to your first lunch. Typically, this is, if you've been to one before, you know there's typically a panel of chairs, but we changed it up this time. So for this round, you have 5 presenters, and there's a lot of great information that they're going to share with you. So I decided to let them have the stage for about 8 minutes, and they're going to present, and they have slides, so it's another little update to these lunches, so you guys will have a visual to follow, and then there'll be a 2-ish minutes per presenter to ask questions if you guys have any on the spot. We're also going to hopefully have a few minutes at the end for questions, but like I said, we have a lot of great presenters, so I want to make sure they have all the time that they need to present. So I'll just be in between to introduce the next presenter. So up first we have Shannon from JPEG. She's just going to start us off. Like Mary said, we partner with Entrepreneurial, so she's just going to share a little more about what JPEG is and all the opportunities for funding that they have. So I'm going to hand it off for Shannon.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for being here. So I won't use up a whole 8 minutes. So JPEG, if you're not familiar with it, is a Papa John Entrepreneur Center. It is with the University of Iowa. We're in the Tippy building, but we are for everybody. So community members, you do not have to have a degree from the University of Iowa. You can be from within the state. You can call me whatever you want, not whatever time you want, but I am always here to, all of us are always here to help you. So I wanted to talk about the free programs that are available to you. 2 are free, 1 is not, but the first one is VMS. It is the Venture Mentoring Service. And this one is if you are building a startup and you want to connect, it's kind of a year-long commitment, but if you want to connect with a team of mentors, and they are across the United States. They are kind of hand selected. They actually choose who they're going to work with. So when you apply to this program with your startup or your business, so it doesn't matter if you're 6 months in or you're 3 years in, they pick who they want to work with. So when they choose you, they have an interest in what you're doing. And then they help you through some hard challenges. They help you with your cash flow. They help you with marketing and other areas. They help you find funding. So that is a great program. It's an MIT program, and so we, and other colleges have it too. So, but we have had it for about 5 or 6 years now, and it's a really favorite program of ours. And you can stay in it 2 years. The more you're in it, the longer you're in it, the better it becomes for you. And so you get a very different viewpoint. There are people that are coders in it. There are retired CEOs. There are current CEOs. So it's a really lovely program. So the second one is business consulting. So this is, if you've ever wished you had a smarter team to help you tackle the bigger problems that you face in your business, this is a great opportunity. In JPEG, you can work with a team of talented students completely free to dig into your real business problems and help you spark new growth. Over the course of the semester, these student teams, guided by experienced faculty, guide deep into your business. They can help you identify market trends, understand your customers better, analyze your competitors, and even build out a plan for things like social media or future growth. I have to read this one because this one's way out of my comfort zone of understanding. At the end, you'll walk away with a clear, actionable recommendations and probably a few fresh ideas. you haven't even thought of. It's a low lift for you, but potential high rewards. So this one is 4 months long of a commitment. And like it says, a team of students and a faculty member will help you with your challenges. This is also an application one where they will go in and they want to hand select the companies or provinces they want to identify. And then the last one, oh, you got a little quick. All right, is Venture School, which hopefully a lot of you have heard of. And Venture School is if you're working on a new idea or you're about to launch a business but wondering, is this really worth pursuing? Venture School is where you're going to find out. It's a 7-week program where you test it out in the real world, using startup approach. You get hands-on experience, talking to the customers, personalized coaching each week, and you have a chance to pitch for real seed funding at the end. The sessions are in person, and it's all wrapped up with a live pitch competition. Whether you're just starting out or exploring new products or service, or even looking to buy a business, Venture School will get you there with the right tools and smarter and faster. And Venture School is $299 to go through it. It's been the same price for 11 years now. And we only charge this price so that you have some skin in the game. And most of the seed funding is, I think it's the lowest seed funding is $500, and then it's up to $2,000. So if you do a good job, you can get your money back. But it is a great opportunity. You'll walk away with a network of people in your community and area. We have locations in Des Moines, Dubuque, Sioux City, Quad Cities, and Mason City. So, all right, that is it for me. I will come back, and now we're going to learn about pitching.
Hey Shannon, now I'm going to introduce Nick Westergaard. He is from storytelling, marketing, leadership, and he's also a keynote speaker and author and a podcast host. So he's going to talk all about how you can pitch and become a really great pitcher. And he only has a few minutes to do so, but I have faith in him. He's going to tell you all the things, and he doesn't even need a microphone. So I'm going to turn it off and hand over to him.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Lexi. How's everybody doing?
Very good.
Awesome. That is good. Well, I am excited to talk about pitching, about connecting and communicating, because it's kind of a paradoxical time to be talking about that. Because on one hand, we have more technology that is supposed to help us than ever before. We have more technology in our pockets than the astronauts took with them to the moon. And yet, at a time when that should work to our advantage, it's harder than ever to cut through the clutter, to connect with people, to actually communicate. So it is a bit of a challenge when it comes to getting up in front of others. So I want to share a few quick tips in how to do that. First and foremost, this doesn't seem like it should be a secret, but it's one that we forget about, and that is simply planning what it is that you're going to say. And most importantly, by answering a couple of questions. Who are you in front of, and why are you in front of them? Take a moment with those questions and spend a little bit of time. You might be surprised by the answers, because too often what we think is planning is opening PowerPoint, and we start making slides instead of thinking about what we want to say and to whom. So, plan. Beyond who you're talking to, the next thing to think about are a set of moments that you need to plan. So you've got the beginning and the end of what you say. And as anyone that teaches, that speaks in front of others, that tries to communicate with people knows, those are the two most important moments. The science backs this up. It's called the serial positioning effect, the primacy effect, and the recency effect. We are most likely to remember the very first thing that someone does when they start speaking, and the last thing when they say, thanks, see ya. And too often, we start with reading off our bio, or if we're lucky enough to have made it to the end, we kind of deflate and ask if anybody's got any questions. So maximize these moments with compelling stats, with a demonstration, with something that captures attention, like a story. So stories are powerful tools. At the time that we focus so much on the technology that we use, story is one of our oldest tools and can have an outsized impact in bringing others about to your point of view. So you can use stories at these opening and closing moments, but we can also hack some of the things that make story a powerful tool in planning out our presentation. So we know stories have a beginning, a middle, and an end. We know that there's some sort of arc. So in thinking about this, what's important for you to think about, I talked about who you're talking to, but the other important thing to think of is what that other party cares about. So what is it that matters to them? Why are you in front of them, and how do you help them with that? That brings us to our second point along this little, I always say it's a story arc, not a story flat line. And that's because usually there's some sort of challenge that our people are struggling with, some sort of conflict. And this is where storytelling and business storytelling sometimes end up divergent, because a lot of times we think, I don't want to talk about anything that's going to make my audience uncomfortable. I don't want to make them feel bad about something that they don't have, about a problem that they're having trouble solving. But it's the tension around those very unmet needs that you're there to help them with that can catapult them, once you have their attention, right over that arc and lead to the end of your story. And that's where you've taken them from a place where they care about something with some sort of problem that you've helped them solve, and then hopefully you can bring about change as a result of that. So the change that they experience is probably in line with what it is that you're asking them to do. Do you want them to sign up now, to take the next steps, to invest in what you're building? That can help to lead you there. So as you think about all of this, to recap these tips, just remember everything is a presentation that needs slides. Sometimes they need you to talk them through a challenge that they're facing. Those opening and closing moments matter. Have a plan to nail your opening and stick the landing. And as you work through this, think how you might use story. Because I think story's a very trendy business topic. I realize the irony of me standing in front of you saying it's a trendy business topic while I'm also talking about story is a little meta and ironic. But I think that story has emerged at a particular time when we are overwhelmed by everything that is out there. It is a lot. And at a time when we're supposed to be more connected, we're more disconnected and divided than ever. I think story can help us with that. When it comes to how divided we are, there's a quote that I've seen attributed to everyone online, including Mr. Rogers, but it basically says it's hard to hate someone when you know their story. So the world needs your stories. Only you can tell them. So with that, I will cede the floor back to any questions that you may have. I'm shocked.
That middle part.
Yes.
So usually when you're telling a story,
Yeah.
your story, that middle part, that conflict, contention is yours.
Mm-hmm.
So is it important then to merge your conflict with the audience's conflict? Are you looking for a mirror there? Are you looking for empathy? What is that?
It depends what the context is. So if we're talking about a business idea, then usually it is a story that is about someone that needs whatever solution or whatever problem that you are solved. So it's usually their challenge and one that you are alleviating. but that's a really good point. And you talked about mirroring, which is a great reminder on some of the science of story and why it works so well, is because we hear a story about something happening to someone else, and it triggers that same emotional response in us as well. And moving people emotionally is something that we talk a lot about, but we don't exactly know how to do it. But story is a tool that helps us to do that. Other questions? All right. Lex, back to you.
Okay, thank you, Nick. That was awesome. Letting how to really tell a great story and how to tell your stories as entrepreneurs is very important. So thankful for Nick for being here today. Now I'm going to pass it off to Ellie. Ellie Moore from the Community Foundation, Johnson County. She is the Vice President of Community Impact and Outreach, and she's going to tell you all about grants that they have and opportunities within our community that you can apply for grants and little tips and tricks there. So Ellie, hand away.
Thank you.
Can everyone hear us okay?
Yeah,
I'm going to dig in a microphone. Good?
Yeah. Okay, perfect. Well, I needed Nick's presentation before mine. I'm starting off with a little bio about myself. But my name is Ellie Moore. I'm Vice President of Community Impact and Outreach at the Community Foundation of Johnson County. I am a champion of nonprofits, philanthropy, and charitable giving. I am an avid seeker of sunshine, a very, very slow but happy runner, and I am chief frisbee thrower in my house. This is my dog, Kumla. So I wanted to give you just a little bit of background about me in general. I always like to know who is talking at me, so that's who I am. And I also want to give a disclaimer. I have expertise in grant making on the nonprofit side, not so much on the for-profit side. So I'm going to talk a little bit today kind of about grants in general, some tips and tricks for grant writing, but really more general information. Nonprofit and for-profit grants are very similar in a lot of ways, but they are also very different in a lot of ways. So you will have some other experts coming up who may know a little more about the true work that you're doing in this space. But I do have plenty of expertise in grant making on the for-profit or on the nonprofit side. I'm going to start with a little bit about a community foundation. We're kind of a unique beast. We are a 501c3 nonprofit organization ourselves, but we're a little bit different than most. So we have what we call this flywheel here. This is kind of how our work happens. We start working with donors. That also includes businesses. So we work with individuals, we work with businesses, we work with community partners, and we help them figure out what their charitable giving goals are, how we can best support them in their giving. A lot of that has to do with taxes, but also how we can connect them to the work that's happening here in our community. So the way that we do that most often is this little pie of funds. So when our donors come to us, we create funds for them. All of those funds together make up the assets of the community foundation. From those funds, we make grants. Those grants spin off a little bit of admin fee, so about 1.5% is our average across all of our funds. We take that fee that runs our operations as an organization, but we also reinvest that into our communities. So we have our own grant making from our admin fee that happens to our nonprofit partners. We may or may not get into a little bit more about that depending on time. One thing to note, we fundraise specifically for our funders, for our donors, but not necessarily as a competitor to our nonprofits. So we're not doing fundraising in the same ways that nonprofit organizations are doing fundraising. We may or may not come to you as a business to be a partner in our work, but we are not going to fundraise in the same way that other folks are. We have about 66 million in assets currently. We hit about 70 before the year started, but with the markets that shifted things just a little bit. So we're about 66 million right now, and we annually grant make about 3 billion back into the community. So in our 25-year history, we granted about 30 million, which is pretty exciting. So what is a grant in general? Grants are, by definition, a sum of money that's given by a government or other organization for a particular purpose or cause. This slide is very kind of read it and you know what it means, hopefully. But grants can look a lot of different ways. So they can be program or operational. Again, kind of what you hear is what you get. Program is specific to programs and projects. Operational support, those things you don't see. Keeping the lights on, your rent, your payroll, all of those pieces. Those grants are usually a little harder to find, but very, very important. And we're hoping to kind of shift funders into doing that type of grant writing. Grants can be one-time or multi-year. They can be upfront. They can be reimbursable. There's a lot of nuance to what grants can look like. State and federal grants are typically 1 year. Some of them are reimbursable. We're trying to advocate for that not to be the case, but that's not always how it works. Additionally, sponsorships and grants are two very different things. So I want to make sure we touch on that just a little bit. Sponsorships, you might get something back for that. Grants, you are not. So sponsorships, you might get marketing, your logo on things. You might get to be at the program, at a table, and get your information out. Grants are not going to work that way. Grants are going to be an application process. You'll send a check out, they're going to do some reporting, but you're not getting anything in exchange, if that makes sense. There's also a lot of different types of funders. So units of government can be funders. Typically, those grants are a little more intensive. There's private foundations, corporate foundations, community foundations, and also private funders, and DAS can have some framing to you. So things to think about before you start writing a grant are really kind of these three areas. So ask yourself, are you ready to apply? Are you ready to complete the program or project as it's written? And are you ready to report on that? So as you're kind of thinking about grant making, think about your relationship with the funder. Do you have one? You should. If you don't, that's the place to start. Make sure you reach out to the funder, try to get information not only about the grant, but about them in general. Are you a fit with them and what they do? Are they a fit with you? If they're not, you might not want to be partners with them. We also talk a lot about eligibility requirements. Are you applying for the grant because you're technically a fit or because it really is a good fit and you might be good partners? Think about that on your end because some of the reporting requirements, some of the program requirements might be strenuous for you if you aren't already doing this work and you aren't a good fit for that partnership. And then of course the time to complete that application. Do you have staff time capacity to be doing this work? Is it something you're already doing? Does it fit your mission, your kind of business's goals, or does it not? We often see some folks who are going after grants because it feels like it's free money. That is not the case. Grants are a lot of work if you aren't already doing that work. So never go after a grant specifically because you think, oh, we could build that thing. We could do that for our business. That's not going to work out well at your end. You're going to want to be looking for grants that really fit with what you're already doing or the ways that you want to be growing, not just because there's funds available. So are you ready to complete the program or project? That's kind of what I was just talking about. Is it connected to your mission, to your business, your work already, or where you want to be headed? Is the timing correct? Did the timing work for you? Your staff was going to be very invested in doing this. So make sure that that feels good. And are you able to cover any additional costs? That includes your staff time. We often don't think about staff time and overhead expense as part of grant expenses, but they are. Sometimes you can include that in your application, sometimes you can't. So be thinking about if that is part of your budget or not. And then of course, is it impactful for you and your clients? Lastly, are you ready to report? Can you track the data? Do you have the information available to be able to track what you need to track to fill out their reporting requirements? Reporting requirements are very different based on the funder. So making sure that you have the ability to track what they need tracked before you get into the grant and get into a contract and agreement with folks is really important. And are you okay with your data being public knowledge? How is the funder going to use what you've given them as a report? Sometimes they'll put it out on a website, they'll do a news post, they'll do who knows what. And so you want to make sure that you're okay with your information being shared. So a couple kind of general tips and tricks. Do you have a relationship with your funder? We talked a little bit about that, but that's really important. That also means when you have a program grant and something goes a little bit hinky, it didn't quite work out how you thought it would, you can call up the funder and say, hey, this didn't quite work. can we still use these funds in a slightly different way? If you don't have that relationship, it's really hard to make that phone call. So that's always important. Preparing your materials in advance. Most good funders will have those materials out kind of publicly for you to be able to see. That way you know what this all entails. What does the recording look like? How long will this take me to complete all of the passes? And then use mixed presentation and balance your storytelling with your metrics. Make sure you're making that pitch, but also making sure that it makes sense on the metrics side of things too, right? How many people are we impacting? What will this do to my bottom line? All of those pieces are important to think about and balance the two of those in your applications. Make clear ask, what will your funds be used for? Make sure that's explicit in the application so that not only the funders, but also any reviewers can understand how those dollars will be used. On that kind of same vein, I always tell people, have someone who doesn't know your business well read the application. Some of the reviewers for grants might have no clue who you are or what you do, or even kind of what your business or industry does. So having someone else read the application and be able to provide you feedback on like, what does that mean? You use this acronym, you use this word, I don't know what that is. That will really help to make sure that anyone who's reading your app on the funder side can understand fully what you're asking. And then of course ask questions. So having that relationship with the funder is important here too. That way you can call us and say, hey, what does this wording think? This question is weird. I'm not sure what to put. What should I set? Like, what should I write down here? That being able to ask those questions by having the relationship is really important. So some resources for you. I can help with grant writing in general, but really these folks are who you should chat with. So the folks on the panel today, Greater Iowa City has a business resource center. If you're not all aware of it, busy. They can help with some of this stuff as well. And then South of 6 Business District is also a good resource here in our community. So make sure you're reaching out to these folks to get information about grants before you will. Okay. I think that's what I got. Any questions? Yeah.
Who are on the committees for reviewing grants? Like, for example, Hannah applied for the underestimated grant that we got last time. And
Perfect. That is a great question. So it totally depends on the funder. Lots of corporate grants are going to be shareholders, employees of that corporation. Our grants for kind of community work are community members. So we try to get a diverse range of skill sets and lived experience and rural versus urban, all of those pieces. Specifically the ARPA grants, actually the underestimated small business grants, are folks with lived experience in those areas. So we are asking for that grant. It's a specific grant for folks from what they call underestimated populations. So we have folks from those populations who have been business owners or currently are business owners of small businesses review the grants. So oftentimes people try to get, depends on the funder, but then try to get folks with lived experience in that area to do the reviews so they understand the applications. Yeah.
Is your foundation only be a nonprofit or what?
That's a great question. So we only grant to nonprofit organizations with the exception of sometimes administrative grants. So we're administering a grant right now for the county, but it's not our funds.
Lucy Sariel says, I'm wondering about the underestimated small business. Your second round just ended. Will we know who was awarded in that first round led for the public?
Yes, it will be. That's a great question.
And seeing what types of businesses were selected?
Yeah, that's a great question. It will be. So the funds for the underestimated small business grant are through the county. They are ARPA dollars from Johnson County. So the Board of Supervisors is actually the one's doing all the communication on that. Kind of outset about that. So it will come out, but I think they're all coming out together at the end.
I raw difference who are getting denials and everything. I just want to know who actually got it.
Yeah.
Piggybacking off of that, that was for-profit businesses, correct? So I looked into that, but because we're a nonprofit.
Correct. Yep.
Mary Ellie, there are professional grant writers. I know there are a number of them here in our area. When does it make sense to contract with a professional grant writer? And is that ever a negative with selection committee?
That's a really good question, Mary. I think it kind of depends on a lot of things. One, the size of the grant. and the scope of the grant. So if it's a super small, if you're getting $2,000 from the grant, you probably don't need to contact that out. Think about kind of what are you going to be paying this person versus what are you getting back? What's your return on investment there? Also, how much do you need to tell them for them to be able to write the grant for you? How much research will they need to do? Because sometimes you have way more knowledge about the particulars, and being able to kind of share that with one person before we share it again, things can get lost. But I would say any kind of large scale grants, federal grants with specific reporting requirements that are a little more hairy, it's very helpful to have someone. Academic grants, helpful to have someone who's written a grant in that kind of field before. They can be very, very specific and nuanced. What was the second half of that question?
Do selection committees ever look down on having a person, the writer, as opposed to the person who will actually receive the grant?
That's a good question that I'm not sure that I have a great answer on that. My assumption is no. We don't see that in our field very often. Typically, our nonprofits are able to hire someone to do their grant writing. Maybe they have a development officer who's doing grants and other work. But I would think not. From a kind of like best practices in grant making, no, they shouldn't. But I'm not going to tell you that they never do. Other questions? All right. Thanks, all.
Awesome. Thank you, Ellie. I hope you guys got a ton out of that. She's just the queen of grant writing, I would say, over here. We work with them a lot, so it's great to see Ellie up here sharing her information with all of you. Next up is Melissa Sober. She works not only at our Business Resource Center, but also to Kiva Lending, and she's going to talk all about lending. So I'm just going to hand over to her and put it this way. Yes. Gotcha.
Hi, everybody. Thanks so much for having me, Greater Iowa City. I'm Melissa Silver, and I'm with NuboCo. I'm our Community Programs Manager. At NuboCo, we are accelerating world-changing ideas out of Iowa, and that's very exciting. Hopefully that works for me. Is that my... So let's see what we got here. Oops, I still put Carly's name in there. We'll have to say that we gave her a shout out, Jan.
I will.
So what Kiva Iowa, today I'm speaking about Kiva Iowa, and that is a micro lending program that is global, and we are the Iowa partner at NuboCo. And so what the Kiva program does is it's a crowdfunding platform, and folks can lend as little as $25 to invest in a company that they believe in. It was established in 2005. Since its beginning, they've been able to enable over 2 million lenders worldwide and have lent a combined $1.6 billion in 77 countries around the world. Lenders are motivated by impact, so while they expect to be repaid, they're not looking to make interest on loans. So I have lent it to this program, and once I get that money back, I'm able to reinvest it in another program or another business. And it's just really exciting to see these small businesses that might not be able to access a loan from a traditional bank to be able to start something in their community and really grow their business. Let's see. Here's our map. A nice visual. All right, so there's a problem and there's a solution. Where are we at? Okay, so traditional lenders prefer to make large loans, and there's a good reason for that. So this slide is not meant to knock banks. We obviously work with banks, and I talk a little bit further about how we partner with banks. So never fear, banks are not the enemy, that is for sure. But they want to make larger loans. It's expensive for them to make small loans. So if you don't have established credit or collateral or an audited business, financials, it's going to be harder for a bank to approve you. And it's expensive for them to make these smaller loans. Please, please, please do not use credit cards or payday loans or bring up a pawn shop please never go to a fund shop for a loan. But Kiva can help fill that gap. If you're not able to access a loan through a traditional bank, we may have a solution. And it might be just part of a solution, but it's something that is very compelling and it makes a really big impact locally and locally. Here we go. All right, so here are some of the numbers. People can get a loan anywhere between $1,000 and $15,000. It's at 0% interest, and they can repay it anywhere between 12 and 36 months. And because it's no interest, whatever the amount is that you're taking out, you just divide that by the amount of months that they're approving you for, and that's what you would pay monthly. And there can be some flexibility. If you've hit some hard times, there can be some ways to work with that potential owner and find ways for them to still be successful and to not default on their loan. So $1,000 to $15,000, 0% interest, anywhere between 12 and 36 months. All right, so here's where we do work with all kinds of folks, and banks are one of them. So city governments, banks, community orgs, they can all run a local Kiva program. As you know, I'm with NuboCo, and we are a community organization. We also work with small community orgs that can be trustees. So we'll talk a little bit about what a trustee is. I believe that there are some folks out of Greater Iowa City that are trustees. Dream City has some trustees that can sign off, and having a trustee, the significance of that when you're getting a loan is that that trustee is going to speak on your behalf and give you some credibility. So having a trustee is certainly optional, it's not required, but it absolutely can help you with your application for a Kiva loan. Borrowers can meet with local lenders, people in the community can become Kiva lenders. As I had shared, I'm a lender in the Kiva program. I really believe in what they're doing, and it's really exciting to see these local small businesses start to flourish. Local philanthropists can also be lenders, and it's just really a community-wide opportunity to infuse our local economy. Potential loan uses. So what can this loan be used for? You can get equipment, you could hire an employee, you've got working capital, maybe you want to upgrade a space. I'm working with somebody right now who wants to leave their brick and mortar site and have a food truck, and they're very excited about being able to go into different communities, get some more interest, maybe find another brick and mortar place to set up, perhaps in a different town. Let's see. All right, so eligibility. You must be 18 years old. So if you're doing the math, like I was just talking to somebody earlier about how students, or if a person has just graduated from high school, they don't necessarily need to go to a 2 or 4 year college. And the great thing about a Kiva loan is if somebody were exiting out of high school and they're just not ready to go to college, a 2 or 4 year college or university, or maybe they don't want to at all, but they want to start a business, they could absolutely take a Kiva loan. And I just love that energy of somebody that's like graduated from high school, they have this opportunity to start a small business. They're not jaded by the world yet, so all these great ideas. And just to share just a little bit, so we have a 10-year-old. Obviously, he's not going to get the Kiva loan, but his mom is taking the Kiva loan, and she is helping him with starting this business. So he has cooking classes, he's single sourcing herbs, and he is teaching his fellow students at not at West High. He would be at Northwest Junior High, but he's like offering these classes to his fellow students. He's like got all of these ideas, and his mom just really believes in what he's doing, and so she's helping him with taking out this Kiva loan. We had him at the Dream City pitch competition at Big Grove Brewery, I think in December, and he won 3rd place. And it's this like 10-year-old that is really exciting about starting a business, and I don't know, I just find that energy to just be intoxicating. It's wonderful. Also eligibility. So the loan has to be for business purposes. It's got to be based in the United States. You're not doing legal activities, LMN, LML, or MLMs. And it's for, you wouldn't want to put it towards like purely financial investing. You can't be in foreclosure or active bankruptcy. You demonstrate a social capital by having a small number of folks that are going to invest in you, and we'll get into that in a hot second. I do have a link. Obviously, you can't just get it from this slide, but I did bring actually, I asked for your other city to print off 10 flyers for me. So if anybody is interested, I have some flyers that will go through all of this. Just talks through some of the points about who is eligible and what you need to do to get moving on that with COVID. Okay, so here's how it works. You've got a loan application. It takes about 30 minutes to an hour to complete it. And you're gonna wanna have like a photograph and a compelling story. So as Nick was speaking earlier, you wanna be able to share something that will get somebody's attention, but also be really heartfelt and a genuine, authentic journey that you've been on, so that when these people that are potential lenders see your story, they're gonna wanna invest in you. Tax returns, bank statements, and business proof aren't required, but it certainly does help. So we can always have a conversation about that later in terms of details. And then the Kiva review is between 1 and 3 weeks. They never go more than 21 days to look at your application and then give you some kind of messaging. From there, you move into the private fundraising stage. So that's what I was referencing earlier. People are going to ask 5 to 40 of their friends and relatives to invest, at least $25 towards their business. And it's showing the Kiva program that you have folks that believe in you, that want to see you succeed, and that this flourishing is mutual, as I quote Robin Herrera from Braden Sweetgrass. Let's see, then it goes public, and you have an additional 30 days to fundraise for the rest of the loan. Deadline here, yes, the next line. Kiva U.S. borrowers have over a 95% chance of being fully funded, which is really exciting and compelling. Repayments are made monthly, and it goes to PayPal, so it won't necessarily go to a bank account. You also pay it back through PayPal, and that monthly repayment begins the month after you take out your loan. And as you can see, if you're taking out a $10,000 loan and you have a 36-month term, it's going to be a little under $300 to repay it monthly. Okay, now, so that's the receiving the lending life. Now, if you want to be a lender and you want to invest in this as a believer in community engagement, economic development, you would choose a borrower. You can look right on their website. You can make as little of a payment as $25, and about 78% of folks get that repayment back, and you can recycle that. Like I said, I was able to take those funds that I initially invested and put them into new programs, which is just wonderful. All right, excellent. Oh, good, my information is down in there. So that is what I have for the Kiva Loan Program. I know it's a lot of information. Does anybody have any questions? I will try my best to answer them. It's a lot, and I do have those flyers. Yes, ma'am.
What does it look like for community organizations to become a trustee?
That is a great question, and I don't have an answer to that. But if we get our contact information exchanged, I can absolutely get back to you.
Great.
I wish we had, I don't know if anybody from Greater Iowa City would want to speak to that. I know that Dream City is a trustee, and essentially they're putting their stamp of approval on that. But that's a great question, and we will find out together. Okay, thank you so much for letting you share.
Thank you, Alyssa. That was a lot of great information, Moj and Wezing. So I hope someone got something out of that. And it was a lot. So I plan on sharing these slides with you all after the event. So if you register, quit your email, you're good to go. Also, I know people signing up a door. That's why I was asking for your emails. So if you're taking pictures or you're worried about getting those links and stuff, they'll be in the PowerPoint. And there's also a resource doc that I'm going to send as well. So I will send that email out shortly after the event. So next up, we have Michaela. Michaela is with Startup Engine, and she's also a Keynote Soul. So welcome her to the stage. This is our last presenter of today.
Well, thanks for having me, everyone. I figured I would try to give you the overview of different capital sources and share a little bit of my background and things that I've taken advantage of. So when I think about starting a business or a company, there's essentially 4 buckets of capital you can go after as a founder. First and foremost, customer dollars. Anytime you can take those even early on is going to be your best option. We've talked a little bit about debt financing, going after loans. We talk about grants, and I'll spend a bit more time diving into raising dollars from investors. So a bit of my background, I started a food tech company where we built solar food dehydrators. We leveraged 3 of those kind of early stages of capital. We built the product here in Iowa, had a product in 50 countries, working with nonprofits, cooperatives, and community organizations. And to do that, we leveraged grants, business plan competitions, and low-impact loans, raising about $250,000 to kind of build the company with prototyping and start selling. So we started with early customer sales, selling early prototypes, and then reiterated on the product, continue to work through manufacturing and get to your commercial viable product. So we were really fortunate. I started this while I was in school, so we had a lot of opportunities to take advantage of pitch competitions, grant, working with local JPEG organizations. So there's a lot of funding out there that is non-dilutive funding to get you up and going. After that, I jumped into the investor side of things. So I spent 3 years working at ISA Ventures in Cedar Rapids. There's a $22 million fund that invests just in the state of Iowa, from idea stage all the way up to companies doing a couple million in revenue, looking at everything from ed tech, software, ag tech, healthcare. It kind of did a little bit of everything. And then about 1.5 years ago, I jumped in with I'd start a banking. So my background's obviously in food and sustainability, so wanted to get back to that. And so I'd start a business based over in Ames, and we do early stage food and ag tech investing, kind of at the idea stage through early revenue. So when you think about going to investors, there's a couple of different types of investors that you can approach, and they all have different things. So Ellie was talking about grant funders having different metrics and what they're looking for. It's the same thing for investors. You've got your friends and family, and they're great, but sometimes you want to be careful because you don't want to lose like your parents' money. That maybe when they offer dinner conversations. You've got angel investors who a lot of times are very interested in investing what's in their own backyard. They're investing in you as the person. They maybe are investing in an industry they're personally interested in. Then you've got venture capital. So that's the place where I sit. So it's essentially a fund. So we take money from others, we pool that money, and then we deploy it into early stage companies with the goal of hopefully we return all that money plus some. And then you've got kind of later stage, which is often private equity, family offices. These are for companies that are up and going, have been in business for many years, are probably profitable, are maybe looking to exit the business. And then you've got strategic investors. So these might be customers who want to invest in the company. They might be potential acquirers down the road. But when you think of the broad kind of landscape of funders, there's a lot. And knowing what they're looking for is really important when you think through how you're going to pitch what you're working on to them. So venture capital, typically we are looking for technology and highly scalable companies. So we're not going to invest in Main Street businesses. We're not investing in services. So this isn't your coffee shop. This isn't your consulting organization, but this is really something that needs capital to build a hardware product
They're looking at scaling rapidly, and someday they are, well, someday they are planning to sell the company. We get our money back when you sell the company, and so that's one of the things that we're looking for is, do you have a plan down the road? It doesn't have to be tomorrow, but is your grand scheme, hey, I want to build this to sell it, not, hey, I want to build this and hand it off to my kids. And most of the time, funds operate on the assumption that you're going after a very large market. So you have the ability to 5, 10, 20x the value of your company, because most of the times it's a few companies that we invest in to return the entire bucket of capital that we have. So I thought I'd throw this up here because when you think about talking to investors, and I spend all day in this, there's a lot of terminology that gets thrown around, and really all it means is there's different investors that like to play at different risk profiles in different stages of your business. So whether that's, hey, I've got an idea on the back of a napkin, all the way to I've built something, I have hundreds of customers and I'm scaling, that's going to impact the type of investor you're talking to and how much capital you're ultimately raising. So when you take capital from investors, most of the time as an investor, we're looking for, do we have conviction in the founder? And so I am often investing in very early stage companies. Sometimes it's students that are just graduating out of the university. They've got an idea. It may be done some customer discovery, tagged to some potential customers, but there's really not a lot there. We're not digging into financials. A lot of times they don't have that. They may have projections, but it's their best guess. And then when you're taking on investment, it's a long-term thing because you're essentially exchanging money for a portion of your company. And you can't exactly change your mind 2 days later and say, oh, I want to buy you out. That doesn't work like that. We're in it for the long haul. And so making sure that you like your investor and you build that relationship is really, really critical. And so the other piece of it, when you go after grants, when you go after debt, you still own the entire portion of your company. When you take on investors, you're giving up a portion of that. And oftentimes that means you're giving up some portion of control. As investors, it's not necessarily our money we're deploying, so we have a fiduciary responsibility to make sure our investments are kind of doing what they said they're doing. So oftentimes investors want a board seat. They're helping you think through governance. How are you building and scaling? And then I think what I find a lot of times from early stage founders is it's really easy to get caught up in valuations and how much is your company worth today versus how much is it going to be worth tomorrow. But really, when you're exchanging kind of equity for dollars, you're giving up a piece of the pie to make the pie bigger. So you're making the assumption that, hey, I can take $250,000, $500,000, couple $1 million, and it's going to allow me to build my company, and that company is going to be worth more 12, 24, 36 months down the road than it was when you took that capital. So I thought I would throw up a couple of different types of investors that are here in Iowa. I think oftentimes you think of Iowa, we're not the Silicon Valley or New York where we have all these big investor firms, but there is a lot of funding resources here in Iowa, from angel groups to a few accelerator programs, and quite a few funds that often have a state-specific requirement. And I think the beauty of being here in Iowa is that almost everyone has a give first mentality, so everyone's willing to have a conversation, and if it's not a right fit, they're willing to point you in the right direction. So I think the last thing I would leave you with as you're exploring these different funding opportunities is to really think through, you're building a business, and what do you want the business to look like 5 to 10 years down the road? And depending on what that is, it's going to determine if grants, if debt, if venture capital or angel investments is really the right strategy for you. And until you can answer that question, it's really hard to know what type of funding you want to go after. So that's all I have for you guys. I'm happy to answer any questions. I'm already go heave in the weeds because I could spend all day talking about this, but yeah, happy to answer any questions.
Question, do you currently have any funding opportunities at the Ag Startup Engine?
Yep, so at Ag Startup Engine, we're looking for food and ag companies. You don't have to be here in Iowa, although we have a preference for it. Typically, we're investing $50,000 checks, anywhere from, like I said, kind of back of the napkin idea to you built a prototype, you got your first few customers. And then one of the things that we try to do is we've got all of our investors come from food and ag. So it's a network of people who can be mentors, advisors, first customers, and help you get to commercialization faster. So that's really where we spend a lot of our time is on the investment side. We did just launch a very early grant program that is on our website. I should run a slide up here on it, but we are giving out $2,000 grants to anyone that's building something in food and ag and kind of needs that early capital to get going, but you maybe aren't ready to take on investor dollars yet. So that is on our website, and you can always shoot me an email. I'm happy to send you more information.
Before I turn it over, I think Shannon wants to say a few things about EntreFest, and then I'll turn it back over to Lexi to wrap us up and make some drawing for some prizes. Do we have anybody else in the audience who currently has funding available or knows of a program that they'd like to share?
I guess I'm the
I work as a drug consultant, and we have the classics currently, and we offer Bibles funding with $500 to $500. It's the loan though not great. So to further this, I have card rate on $10.
Is there a deadline on that? Is it a limited time program?
Because not, you got a lot of money to get out, so it would be better at the communities and sitting in our bank account. So
Can you share your name one more?
Yeah, Robbie Jacobson. Okay, and you're with East Central Iowa Council on the Government or DC COP. Thank you.
If you want to email me, we can put it on the resource page. We plan to send out to everybody. Yes. So I'll try to be quick about this. This is also on the resource page. But there is just alone here a little over $250,000 worth of pitch money, which is free. And all you have to do is do what Nick said and tell your story. So I want to challenge all of you to try and to pick two, and you can still apply to all of these this year. So there was an additional 4 that already happened. So there's even more. And there's more out there. These are just the ones that I could find. So there's a lot out there, and I personally feel that they do a terrible job of marketing these. So they don't put their money in marketing, they put it in their seed money or in the pitch. And so this is just a thing that happens. But you get out there, you look, you do Google scan, and even ChatGPT will tell you about these. But most all of these are specifically for Iowa. So want free money is what I like to call it. And the other big thing is in Iowa, statistically, I love data. There is less than 80 people that apply to these, so your chances are really good. Apply to these. A lot of them, there's less than 20 that apply. So you have a huge chance to actually get picked and to go forward and to pitch. And women don't show up to these a lot. So show up, get out there, pitch. Entrefest has one. All you have to do is go to Entrefest, and you can get in there. First place is $7,500. Hy-Vee, they have a lot of beats. You just have to know about. Hy-Vee's not doing a great job of marketing this, and I don't know why they have a huge marketing team in Des Moines. But their first place is $30,000, and they have a whole summit. It takes place in Kansas City, Missouri, but there's a lot more of this one going on. So if you go to that, you'll get a lot more stuff. This one is if you are with the University of Iowa and you're an alumni. Now, this one is fun because if you take any type of resource from JPEG, we consider you an alumni. So if you do business consulting for free, DMS, or venture school, you're an alumni, so you can now do it. So that is the way if you're a bioventure, anything like that, staff, whatever. So this one is a lot bigger. So the alumni one, $50,000. We just awarded that one on Wednesday night. It takes place twice a year, fall and spring. Innoventure Challenge is out of Des Moines. It's a winner take all, 100,000. I think that one does have like 80 people that applied. That one's pretty big one. They do a great job. That one's. The John Papa John Entrepreneur Venture Competition. That's another really big one. That one's still, you can get in. I just really want to point out there are lots of opportunities. The better you get at this, there's a lot of statistical data out there about this. We should all be doing this. Again, it really weird out there was like money. This is still free money for kind of keep doing this. They hawk people that you to invest in this. Then serious, y'all get out there, do the same one over and over. We'll get good at it. We'll get comfortable. Just want y'all to go out there.
Jan, and I would add to that, if you want maybe to sort of practice and get some feedback about a pitch, along with the Entrepreneurial Center, we hold 1 million cups every Wednesday morning. And there generally are 20 or 30 people here who will give you feedback for free about your business. It's a great opportunity to sort of get out in front of people and maybe try that first draft of a pitch to see how it works.
Yeah, and then Cedar Rapids has one too, and they are doing a speed pitch in 2 weeks. Is that
2 weeks. Yeah, I'll be first. Yeah, you can go to our EntreFest website and find out more information about that as well. Yeah, we're also happy to work with you if you're not able to that date.
Yeah, and there's, you can always, I get in front of my children, they give me lots of unsolicited feedback. So, just get better at it, more comfortable, and then there's always opportunity. You just got to start asking people where to keep the money. So, yes.